Guys, this afternoon's update's a review of March 2025. March 2025 is expected to be quite wet and quite an active month, particularly the second half, and focused in the northern tropics. There'll be two tropical cyclone signals of interest, one that'll affect the west and one that'll affect the east. Both signals are predominantly rainfall signals, so that indicates more so low pressure systems that are land bound or low end category one cyclones or rain depression type features embedded within the monsoon trough. The first half of the month will be more of a hot, dry build up period with some frontal systems and developing monsoonal activity to the north. And that'll progressively will feel the moisture build over the month ahead. So, as we know, I like to section these weather events off into known periods. That way, we know generally what to expect and the sort of timeline that these events will happen. So that then, when you're using the computer models, you can say, that's the model run we want to look at there, and that's how we can identify which model run out of all the million runs will be the most likely to give the outcome that we're after. So, looking at that, the first energy period is first to third, so it's very short. So we're not expecting a lot of rain here, more so just a day or two of thunderstorms, or we might see a low pressure system forming on satellite. The 7th to the 12th, this is more of a extended period. Again, we'll see a low pressure system. This is a southern based feature that'll form down here and generate severe storms in the east after show and go in the west, not much activity in the west. Then from the 18th into early April is when the extended wet period occurs, and this will be the end of the northern wet season, and it should finish in style for a lot of people. And those in the Northern Territory should do well out of this. I know I've said that before, and the rain's formed and been pulled away as quickly as it developed, but with an extended phase of the monsoon, generally it's more favourable. So the way it's going to play out is this feature here, as we've discussed in other updates, is the remnants of this current tropical low that's forming now to the northwest of the territory. And in about 10 days, 240 hours, we're expecting that to be in the bight. So 10 days from now, today's the 19th, 10 days from now is around the 1st of March. So that's about where we want to see it at that time. If we go back to the forecast, we can see we've got a low pressure system there in that first few days of March. At the same time, another low can form up here. So we'll see rainfall signals begin to increase for the Northern Territory and the Kimberley. And the interaction between the southern upper trough and any moisture up here can see moisture float into the interior, which can sustain just patchy thunderstorms. Nothing significant because we're not quite in that moisture profile yet. But we'll see the early phase of the upcoming wet period. It'll progressively get wetter as the weeks go by. So this period's, not expected to show much, but there'll be pockets of severe storms in the southeast and southern coastal areas, and new tropical signals will start to form up near the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf. We should start to see cloud rebuilding to the northwest, south of Indonesia, which will be the next indication for the monsoon phase. Week 2, we still see that low there, and this is the anchor for the monsoon. So it's going to build in intensity and strength, and eventually we'll see that northwest flow extend right across the north. We have a low pressure system which starts as just a frontal system in early week 1, so around the 8th. We'll see a frontal system moving towards Western Australia. By about the 10th, this feature will deepen into either a strong cold front or an actual low pressure system, and that will enhance weather into the 12th for the southeast. So we'll see gusty thunderstorms and generally wider spread storms than we've seen moving into the general southeast, and they'll be enhanced this time around because we'll have a broader monsoon. So in February the monsoon was mostly confined to the northeast. which limited a lot of the moisture from coming into the interior because there was no major flow back here towards the territory. So the location of these lows, the flow generally moves to the southeast. So if your low pressure system's in the Gulf, most of your rain will be through the east parts of Queensland. But if your lows are back through the territory, you'll get that rain that moves in through the northern interior. So we should see both. We'll see a low in the Gulf eventually and a low here, so we'll get that widespread rainfall. Not a lot in the southwest, patchy showers along the southern coast, more so developing in the east. Week 3, we'll see both tropical lows should be starting to become defined systems, and they'll be clearly labelled by the bomb. One will have a western track and one will have an eastern track. The western system's expected to stay on shore purely because it's a rainfall period. So in that case, I don't expect cyclone genesis as such. So in the start of February, we had the wet period, and then we had a cyclone genesis period. The wet period caused the flooding. The cyclone genesis period caused the Cat 5 cyclone. So they are distinguishable from each other. They have their own requirements, and for that reason, I have a low probability of cyclones forming at this stage, with both systems expected to be major rain producers only. Generally widespread thunderstorms through the eastern interior. Due to this broad monsoon and the location of these lows, you'll see all the outflows streaming in through the interior, so there'll be widespread thunderstorm potential, particularly these boxed areas, so the northern or the central Queensland interior, slow moving storms, good rainfall potential through there, and the same with the southern interior of New South Wales, or just the general interior of New South Wales, good rainfall potential there. The true rainfall period begins from around the 18th till 20th, and then extends into the end of month, early April. So what we're expecting is the low that's been hanging around and has initialised the monsoon will begin its march southwards towards the Pilbara, making a recurve, anywhere from Port Hedland to Exmouth, and moving into the southern interior before they dry out pretty quick in this area. But that's the general track of that one, and we're looking at that landfall recurve period around the 22nd of March. While that's occurring, the Gulf system, if it's weak, it'll move out in the Coral Sea, and then it'll be redirected back on shore. If it's a bit stronger, it'll stay put and track through the interior. Either way, strong rainfall signals, very similar rainfall profiles to early February, so that's a concern for anyone in the northeast. Plan for a lot of rain, and this, like I said, this hangs around until April, which says that there'll be just a slow moving, slow track system. There could be 2, but it's very unlikely we see 2. This signal out here is likely to be a separate system. So because I'm expecting so much rainfall, if a tropical cyclone moved this far offshore, it would pull all the rain away. Because I'm expecting rainfall, I'm expecting them to come back and stay about the coast or coastal interior. So that's the outlook for March. The good rains are due from the second half of March, particularly the 18th onwards. Very, very wet signals. These are the original maps. I've decided not to change them because I've gone over all my work today several times, and these maps represent the general progressions quite well, in my opinion. This is an original rainfall map released back in September when I did this forecast. This is from September. And if we compare that to the current version of this map, we can see that we have high rainfall anomalies off the northwest coast, which is supportive of the northwest tropical system. And we also have anomalous rain through the Gulf and much of northeast Queensland, again, which is supportive of this outcome. So there is good agreement with the models, and the models are slowly progressively getting wetter and wetter to do with this. So this has got a very high probability of occurring. rain in the south will be closer to the average for March, above average in the east, close to average in the west. I still think below average in the south, just due to this drought phase that they're in. Although that's slowly shifting eastwards. We'll see the drought phase in the east by the summer this year coming, 2026. So that's the general outlook. You can read over the March forecast. It will be unchanged again because events fit the expectations. It's quite detailed, the step-by-step progressions. And then beyond March, I'm expecting a drier shift after week 1 of April, dry through to the end of May. This model represents that quite well too. Any rainfall that's left over in the tropics will be the departing monsoon. Generally dry elsewhere. May, very, very dry month. There's almost no activity until the final days of the month. So these rainfall signals will be due in those last few days of May. Disregard anything else. And that carries over into June. June is a national wet period and is the wettest month of the winter season, and this model is very supportive of this, and this will be due to a series of northwest cloud bands. So the rainfall signals we had in December, we brought record rainfall in December, the record rainfall in August 2024, the flooding from Cyclone Kirrily through western Queensland, that cycle comes back in June. So this has got a higher probability of occurring. The broad cloud bands extend right up into the tropics. So farmers in the south, your wet break is late May and throughout June. I do not expect anything before then of substance. It's just there's nothing there in my work. And going off the history that we've been through, I don't expect anything to change until June. So keep that in mind. Regarding the March forecast, we're almost within the view of some of the models, the traditional models, so we can start to use live data to compare with our forecast to pick the correct model runs and the right outcomes. Disregard any cyclone talk, especially for the East Coast over the next week. And any cyclone developments will start moving back up to the Arafura Sea from early March. And you'll see a lot of cyclone activity out in the Coral Sea as the MJO moves away. But it'll loop around and come back in a couple of weeks. It should be a pretty quick turnaround with the MJO. So, yeah, I'll update this again over the next few weeks in a traditional sense where we can use actual computer models to compare the data and do our normal analysis side by side. But yeah, so the March is unchanged, very wet second half, pretty boring first half, and we'll update as required.